Welcome to the Ulferfolk Network. This is episode 14, Community. I am Trevor, and with me today is Sarah.
Hello.
Savannah.
Hi.
And Eric.
Hello.
These are our individual opinions and not necessarily the opinions of our tribe. This podcast is in a discussion format. Several topics are presented in each episode. We look to archaeology and written works as examples, but also use our own judgment for things open to interpretation. So, welcome everyone to episode 14, Community. One of the topics we're going to touch on today is how heathenism has benefited each of us, and what are some of the pros and cons of being heathen, and the things that have affected our life as such.
Who's starting?
I'll go first. I have some pretty clear examples in my head. First and foremost is I have a job now that I would not have if I did not know the people that I only met by being heathen. So I'm glad to have gainful employment and money. That's pretty cool. It's a thing that I have. Odin did it. Yeah, right? It's all the guy in the sky. But that, and it helped me. I've had a couple of loved ones pass, and I feel like having a heathen understanding of the afterlife and ancestor veneration, it makes me feel closer to them and helps me personally in a way that's saying, well, they're in a better place now. They're in heaven. It doesn't. That's good for them, but that doesn't make me feel closer to them. It makes me feel farther away, as opposed to the belief that even though they're gone, they have a vested interest in the ability to influence my life, and they can see me and talk to me and vice versa. I find that personally helpful. And some Christians believe in seeing ghosts. My grandma's very Christian, and she believes we have a ghost named George who opens up all the cabinets. I think it's the fact that the house is on a 45-degree angle, but it's probably George.
Well, I'd have to agree with that. Not George, but with feeling more of a connection and maybe more acceptance of people who pass, that they're not gone, or they've not gone somewhere else. They're still with you, and it's in a very different sense than maybe other religions have, I think.
Yeah, to me, it's like when one of our friends passed, a member of our tribe, a few years ago. Before being heathen or Asa true, the concept of death was, they're gone forever, and that you're never going to see them again, and as some religions believe in an afterlife, and that they're going somewhere to a better place. But heathenism is specifically, you go one place if you just died of natural causes, and into Valhalla if you died as a warrior. And so even though our friend didn't die as a warrior, I still believe that he went to a place where, I hope that he's happy and that he's, still with us in spirit, on some level. And so it kind of gave me an easier, it's easier to accept the fact that someone died to me, knowing that, I don't believe it's the final of all things, and that we are, reborn or possibly reborn into our own line or into another, point in time later on in the, in the grand scheme of the cosmos.
I personally think he is a black elf now.
Black elf.
No, not a dark elf.
Not a dark elf. Black elf.
Uh-huh.
But yeah. we have seen him, not in person, but Fire has done weird stuff.
Oh yeah,
weird stuff has happened.
On Flare, so.
Yeah, mentioning his name or just talking about him during a sumbel or after our sumbel or ritual, and when we mentioned his name, the fire all of a sudden just went up by itself for a minute, things like that, and just strange little things that, we hope that that's him, reaching out, and it kind of gives us all a sense of, I don't know what the word would be, but being content and okay with that he's, still there or around. And I feel that way with most people that pass, that it's not such a dreadful thing to lose someone as I would have, assumed previously in my life at one time.
I definitely agree that the afterlife is one of the bigger reasons that heathenism has benefited me. I think being able to view spirits as not, because I feel like in Christianity there's a lot of negative thoughts about if there are spirits, well then they must be bad, and it's always the devil
or demons. It's always demons coming through.
Demons and devils after me all day long.
Like, to me, the idea of a land spirit, an elemental spirit who was here on this land long before you were even brought into this world, is probably maybe not so happy that you've decided to do what you do. That is a little bit more of a rational explanation to me, in a irrational world. But heathenism has also benefited me because I think it kind of gave me a table to sit at. I was raised in Christianity. I was dedicated when I was an infant. So, I'm technically dedicated to Christ, but it never sat right with
Eric
me.
scoots away.
It never sat properly with me. I had gone to different kinds of Christian churches. I've been to Mormon churches and Lutheran, and my mother's fairly active in the church, but heathenism kind of gives me the religion that I'm looking for, that's a little bit more me and the world around me, and less me and this deity that sits on a cloud and is responsible for all the good in the world. And it much more explains to me the ebb and flow of life in positive, negative, all the other ways, all the things we can and can't explain, than I think a black and white monotheistic religion.
Yeah, and it's okay for things to be negative and positive all at the same time.
All right, get a little good with a little bit of the bad, and that's the nature of the universe. Things ebb and flow, like Savannah was saying, and that's the way it works. And if you're okay with that, then that's going to be something. But
I have one more positive, because the flip side of this is, how has being heathen made it hard? Because nothing is always daisies, right?
Right.
But before we get onto that, I have one more positive thing that heathenism has allowed me to do, which is, when I was in college, I did not like myself at all. And the answer of Jesus loves you, so you should love you, I found hollow and weak.
Patronizing?
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, so this guy who is 2,000 years old, who has no relation to me other than we're both humans, he likes me, even though I have no proof that he's ever met me. I found it much more realistic and comforting to say, your grandpa loves you, but he also is willing to tell you where you need to improve. Mm-hmm. He's, he knows what your strengths and weaknesses are, and in the same way that he knows that, you should also know that. And so that kind of, ironically, that coming to not Jesus moment was what set me on an upward trend of getting better and, exercising and doing more than just getting through school.
Yeah.
And even there was stuff I did that there's no real reason to do it other than it was nice to do so. It was good to do so. Like, I had a friend in college who consistently wrote D essays who got a B because I stayed after school every day and helped him write his essays. I didn't write them for him. If, 5 years old testimony is going to make, get me in trouble or have him in trouble for plagiarism or anything. But I was basically his editor for a year, and that's why he passed that class, which had nothing to do with, I didn't do it, he didn't pay me. It wasn't like I was a tutor, and it wasn't something I could put on a resume at all. It was just, he's my friend, I know what I'm good at, and I really know what he's not good at, and we're going to see if the two meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. For me, it's been kind of a almost like a double-edged sword. For every way that heathenism has kind of benefited me, it's also, I don't want to say set me back, but at the same time, it's like, at home you can be who you are, but then as soon as you go out into the world, you have to be someone else. And it's been kind of like that just because I've always been very open about my faith and what I believe. And if someone were to ask me, I would just tell them. But at the same time, I'm not going out and saying, this is who I am, you better understand, like, vegans or CrossFit people.
You're not saying, witness me.
Yeah. Look at how awesome I am. But there's been a lot of instances in my life where I feel like if I were to say something or, I was asked a personal question, and I feel like if I were to answer that completely honestly, that I would be discriminated against, for sure.
I completely agree with that,
Right.
especially when it comes to, like, not necessarily your nuclear family, but your extended family. Like, I really love and cherish time that I get to spend with my aunts and my uncles and my extended family. But unfortunately, it just kind of seems like I'm keeping half myself off the shelf or on the shelf. I can't be as... I don't want to put myself in a vulnerable position, and be like, this is who I am, this is what I love.
Right, be completely transparent, or they would,
because, and then it's that, so.
Yeah, they just won't understand.
Is that one of those new age religions?
Yeah.
Oh, I've gotten that. I don't even know how many times, especially from my family. So, I mean, even my family knows on a certain level, but they don't take the time to understand exactly what I believe because honestly, they don't really care.
Yeah.
It makes my family feel, sound horrible, but that's really probably where we all are is, they know that I'm pagan, that I don't believe in, whatever Christian or, Judaic religion they're following. But they also don't know more than that.
Right.
And they don't care to learn more than that. They don't care to ask. Probably because they don't want to know the answer.
But I think that's okay because I don't think any of us are necessarily people that, one of the biggest reasons that we are as close as we are in the tribe and as friends is because what happens in our time together stays in our time together.
It's like Vegas.
Yeah. You beat me to it.
It's not, it's not a commercialized interaction. It's, it's something private that is cherished.
Right, so we don't need to share that necessarily with anybody. If someone asked me, I'd be more than happy. But like Sarah said, are they really interested? Yeah. Or they want to know, what kind of weird religion you have so they can either, dismiss you out of hand because it's ridiculous or...
tell you you're gonna go to hell.
Or tell you you're gonna go to hell. That's about the only how many people that you actually, if you actually told them, would actually take the time to go, wow, that's pretty interesting. That's really neat. And so what where did this religion come from and how old is it and things, are they really interested?
No.
And I don't feel a lot of people are.
The answer's always no.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that
I feel very pessimistic here, but
yeah.
No, I live with a roommate, and my roommate is very Christian, and I've tried to kind of explain, like, hey, like, you're gonna see some things around the house. I'm gonna do some things around the house.
I'm not in league with the devil, but just in case.
I don't agree with the devil, but and then I try to explain to him like what Asatru is, but because I'm having to dumb it down so much, it comes across as very like Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. It sounds like
it just
Marvel comics.
Yeah, and I've just stopped. I'm not going to be able to communicate to a Christian what I'm trying to do because it's just not going to.
It's out of their realm of ability to comprehend something that's so.
Not to bag on Christians too much, but let's,
they're the most they're the most common denominator that we have to deal with is why it's so, and that's not like
the majority of the population in this country is Christian, so that's what we have to.
Yeah, and it's not because
about.
We're slanted toward them. It's just the majority of the people you run into are of that religion or whether they attend church regularly or not, or if they're just Christian in name only. You'll still get that same kind of judgment, I think, personally.
So we have to go with what's bad from my point of view. Or
do you have a bad one?
I do have a setback, minor or major as it is. I cannot let my in-laws to be know about how I feel about Jesus, because that was like the first question that
They asked
future stepdad asked Becca before he met me was, does he love Jesus? And
Really
Jesus
phrased
boy.
like that.
Yeah.
Not just does he go to church?
no,
Or,
like, does he love Jesus?
Does he love Jesus?
And she had to go, he thinks about him the same way I do. And
He likes him a lot.
she lied her pants off at that point. So she was in deep at that.
Yeah, it's kind of a bromance, but I don't know.
Yeah, but so there's a lot of stuff that I have big dreams, of course, and I want to have my own grove of God poles. I want to have a fire pit with runes on the stones and do some of the showy stuff too. And if I stay within driving distance of my relatives, I cannot do that. I'm gonna have to do the porta altar that gets turned into a briefcase and shoved in the back of the closet for whenever my sister-in-law comes over.
Well,
Yeah.
what if you flip all the stones around your fire pit over one by one, and the runes are on the other side?
Man, I never thought of that.
You could just make them. Whoop! You just go out there and flip them all.
That's like
when they're on their way.
That's like this. That's like the spy phone in a shoe.
There we go.
You
Never
hear the
looked there.
tires on the gravel
Yeah.
road and you go,
But it'd be kind of hard to hide the god poles. Yeah.
These
Yeah.
are and then you do things like you put sheets. No, not sheets. That'd be bad.
That'd be really,
Yeah.
really bad. What I do is when
Ribbons, lots and
Oh.
lots of ribbons that you just have, so that you have to wind them tightly to hide the shape and the
God.
face, and then you just got a bunch of ribbon poles in the back of your yard.
for all of this, you at least have to live like an hour away from your
Right. Yeah. So that's some of the things we have to deal with, and
our god poles we don't hide. I mean, we have people. Well, before all this COVID stuff, we had people over really often. But whenever I'm asked about them, I just come from the standpoint of you're not going to understand even if I told you what this was. So I just say it's just my ongoing art project of carving. I said they're kind of like
Totem poles, kinda.
like totem poles, like a European version of totem poles.
Yeah.
But like, how else would you explain that to someone who doesn't have any idea what a god pole is?
because most people have heard of a totem pole, and if you just
Yeah,
say
they
it's
will
a
understand
European version,
This
then-
is my golden calf.
yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So
Okay, so we were also going to talk about community, and we could go from the Asatru heathen community out to the larger umbrella term of pagan community, and what have your interactions been with either or neither of those?
I really haven't had much exposure to other heathen groups other than the heathen individuals who have expressed interest in defecting to us. But I really don't like organized religion in any sense, so I stay very away from most larger scale Asatru organizations. And paganism, I haven't had a lot of, like pagan individuals. I haven't had a lot of. I'm sorry, Sarah's making faces. I haven't had a lot of experience with other pagans, so I can't really, I can't really say to any side.
I had a basically adopted sister who was already 18 by the time she came to live with us, so there was no like adoption. It was just, she can't live at her house, so she's living at ours now. And she was very Greek leaning and very witchy, and would bring stuff as like, we need to do grounding meditation, and I'm like, I'm fine for sitting on the floor and being quiet, sure. Or yeah, that's what it was like. And she'd say things that to me were weird, like, you're a very grounded meditator. It was like, I'm just sitting here, I don't know what that means.
I can sit quietly for a long time.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You get an A+.
Man.
Yeah.
That I'm the lazy witch. But I don't know. She had like snakes and stuff too. That was a little.
Well, she was like full blown.
Probably a Dianic.
Witchy.
She did like the twins.
Yeah.
She did like the twins a lot. Apollo and Diana, I think.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
So-
what twins?
Yeah, that's kind of
I
like
guess I'm
their
just, like,
that's
brain
kind
dead.
of their lord and lady, I guess, in Wicca or paganism. But
Kind of Frey and Freya, but also not. It's not perfectly analogous.
no,
But
No, none of them really are. As hard as people try.
and then I've also met someone someone who loved the Morrigan too much is how I would describe her.
I think there's a lot of those.
And
I hear that a
Can you
lot.
clarify that for me and our audience?
so the Morrigan, I believe, is Irish, and she's
Celtic-ish?
Yeah, she's definitely Celtic, but I think she might be specifically Irish. Don't quote me on that one, but she's like a goddess of either death or magic, and she's associated with ravens.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that's like it ooked me out a little bit to be like, I don't want to be your best friend, but this was the first time I had met anyone who wasn't Christian, so I was like, this is gonna be fun for a little while. Let's be buddies, I guess.
I have to interject here. When I initially started dating my boyfriend and it got to that, that conversation of, well, what do you believe in? I told him, and I go, I hope you're okay with that, because he's not very, like, spiritual or anything like that. But, I'm having a group and routine and ritual. And he goes, oh, yeah. As long as you're not like my ex, she used to practice Santeria. And I was like, I am nothing like your ex.
Let's get this clear now.
Yes, sir.
yeah. I had a neighbor that was practiced Santeria, and the only thing I noticed that was different, it's kind of a pagan kind of religion, but it's kind of almost like
It's like Old Testament voodoo Christian.
But you voodoo,
really?
yeah.
Catholic.
She had these colored water jugs, and they were like milk jugs, the plastic ones,
Yeah.
filled with different colored water lining both sides of her driveway.
Yeah.
So there was red, blue, yellow, green, whatever, and I didn't know what was
But
going
milk
on.
jugs?
And she said,
Sounds
yeah.
kinda
And I was like, what are those for? She said, oh, it's part of Santeria or something.
No, I guess his ex was, they were very briefly dating, so this wasn't like a long-term investment. But they were she was to the extent that she had just an altar full of like cat leftovers and
Bones.
What?
yeah, she would have like a bowl of blood, and he goes, as soon as I saw that, I was like, nope, okay, bye. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
because
there's
we
those-
have bloat and ritual, but not just like sitting in the
Yeah,
house
not
all
just
day
sitting
long.
around.
Yeah, bowl of cat blood
Yeah.
laying around. That's kind of weird. But yeah.
Anyway.
So what I'm sensing is between everybody's interactions, those aren't like, it's almost like they're unaffiliated solo practitioners, especially like my
Yeah.
half sister. Hers was very much, she wasn't a part of a Facebook group that I knew of that was like, this is how you do stuff. It was a lot of higgledy-piggledy, which isn't bad, but she didn't have pagan friends other than me, and I didn't meditate that much, so we didn't do a lot of the same stuff. Did you find that the same with like pagan people you knew?
Well, so Trevor and I actually met because of a pagan group. Pagan, like,
Yeah.
literally just pagan. And there were lots of different kinds of people and belief
Yeah,
systems in
different
that.
flavors.
Different flavors of pagans. But so we met that way initially. Scratching stuff?
Yes.
Scratches.
So that's how we met. So I think I don't know, I just feel like we had kind of a relationship that was different from, I think, what a lot of people experienced, just because we both came into the relationship from exactly the same viewpoint.
Right. Our
So-
viewpoints were very similar. Pagan, just kind of continental Europe flavor of paganism, and our views on it were pretty much the same. And the other members of the group, some were a little more,
Well, this was back in the day
yeah,
when
way back.
when Yahoo groups was how you connected with people. So this
Oh
is
boy.
like
Yeah.
pre-Facebook, pre-whatever, whatnot. Like,
Yeah.
you had to have a Yahoo account to use
Create a Yahoo
groups.
group, which was basically kind
Yeah.
of like a Facebook group.
And so they like would do a meetup, kind of like we used to do our third Thursday, but they did like a monthly meetup at a pizza place, and
or a coffee shop or something.
Yeah, and they just kind of like sat there, and usually they canceled it because they were real wishy-washy.
Yeah,
But
that was our experience with the general pagan community, was that they like to plan things, and about 90% of the people that say they're going don't show up. So you end up with like 3 people sitting around all looking at each other
Yeah.
like, so what do we talk about?
We experienced
awkward.
this during Third Thursday.
That's
I-
true.
Right.
But at least we had each
Yeah.
other to
Oh,
talk
yeah.
to. When
Yeah.
no one showed up, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there would be like 3 people that show up that like a lot of times that have never met each other. And the person that scheduled the meeting was the
Wouldn't
one
show
that
up.
didn't show
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So you got 3 unrelated people that don't know each other and don't know what to do. They're sitting around waiting for like the leader or whatever to come and show up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, something came up, I couldn't make it. And so they don't know until they get there. And so it was, yeah, and after a few times of that, we kind of I just stopped going and doing anything with them.
Yeah, then we just hung out with each
Yeah,
other.
so we were basically 2 solitary pagans that, started hanging out.
And I feel like the general progression when you start at just umbrella term pagan is, I think a lot of people progress into like Wicca and stuff, and that's almost like, I feel like for a lot of people that's almost like a stepping stone to the next whatever they're
Thing.
actually interested in.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was interested in like Wicca for a while there. I was also pretty young. I was like a teenager. So, but then I never felt like that was quite right. Like it didn't click with me. A lot of like frankly, a lot of traditions that were kind of
Specifically.
picked from here and there, very eclectic things, they didn't make sense. And so I think we both kind of used that as a stepping stone together to find heathenism and Masatra.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what wanted something, and we were interested in something that was pagan, but not necessarily Wiccan or
Yeah, something with a little more purpose and point.
the neo type of druid or pagan type groups. We weren't really so much into that because a lot of them use kind of just an eclectic blend of different parts and pieces that they take from several different, whether it's Celtic, Scottish, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this weird mishmash of, and you don't feel like there's any particular direction you're going. You're just kind of taking little bits and pieces to create some kind of your own unique tradition. But it just didn't really feel like that was something that we were interested in. And then when we found something that was more culturally connected to us, something that was of Germanic, heathenism or Northwest European paganism specifically, that was more of a better fit, for what we were looking for.
I don't think you can have a genuine connection with, with your religion, with your faith, until you have a more specific understanding. When I was young, I think every young girl goes through a phase where they're like,
yeah.
I want to be a witch.
Totally.
I just want to run around naked under the moon.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, so it was like,
No.
that was the thing.
What gets me is this
As
is
a teenage girl, what is your viewpoint, Eric?
as a modern teenage girl. I just, what you're saying makes me think of the memes that go around. It's like, we are the granddaughters of the witches you couldn't burn. And I'm like, get over yourself.
Yeah.
I've not
Yeah,
seen
there was
this.
like
yeah.
18. I think there were like 18, maybe in the Salem witch trials total. So yeah, I mean,
Anyway, sorry,
But,
continue.
Go ahead.
I feel like you kind of have to pass through those gates.
Yeah, it's like a stepping stone to whatever you're.
Yeah, it's the
actually
like,
interested
okay,
in.
well, I don't fit quite into the box of monotheism, so where am I going to go from here? Oh,
Yeah.
Wicca.
Well, and
Wicca's
that's
easily accessible, and then
Yeah,
you kind of
that's
pour on
exactly
down
it.
the road to figure out what more specifically you're feeling. And it wasn't until I met Sarah that I really had any idea, and then actually it wasn't even until my first stumble here that I was like, oh shit, this is like a thing.
yeah,
like people do
yeah.
People do this,
Right.
and I'm loving it.
and I think that's why a lot of people who practice those, more witchy faiths, we'll say, is because they feel solitary. They feel like that's all
Yeah.
they can do is be by themselves because no one else believes exactly what they do. And I think that's a big issue for the pagan community as a whole, is that, you know, and this might also be an American culture thing where so many people, like, what is it, 70% or something of America is Christian
Right,
of some
Christian
sort.
or
Yeah.
Catholic
Or
or something.
Catholic.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
We don't have people saying, oh, you know, outwardly, this is
Yeah.
what I am and this is what I believe because of this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're pushed down, kind of shoved into the ground for believing something else.
Which is so, I mean, we're a country built on religious freedom and built of people that
But not
fled.
our religious
No.
freedom.
Yeah,
No,
not
only
yours.
the people running to this country
Yeah.
from religious
Sorry,
prosecution.
only Protestants
Right.
are allowed to
Yes.
be religiously free.
Yeah, and I think on what Sarah was saying, it makes it hard for people. The reason why they become or gravitate toward those type of religions that are solitary is it's hard to find other people, and a lot of people aren't comfortable coming out and just saying, so are you into witchcraft, or something? What,
randomly.
Have you heard of our Lord Odin?
Right, yeah.
Well,
and it's hard to find and connect and network with people when you're on the fringe of what's acceptable in
Yeah.
religion.
And I think a lot of what helps us kind of identify one another, and it doesn't matter which flavor of pagan you are, I think what helps identify us is jewelry. Like, how many
Oh,
times
yes.
have you seen someone wearing a Mjolnir and you're like, hey, so cool Mjolnir there?
Yeah.
And like start that conversation just because you're kind of also
Yeah.
gauging, are they actual Asatru or heathen, or are they just wearing this because they think it's cool,
Yeah.
or what?
I'd extend that in minor form to tattoos.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I'll see people who have tattoos that are heathen.
Or like Trevor's that literally
It
says
says, yeah.
heathen.
It's getting a little bit harder now because people get cool Viking tattoos.
Yeah.
Right.
But still, there's that level of like, so do you know what heathenism is? Oh, no, you don't? Okay, bye.
Right,
Yeah.
and you can
Or
Sorry
why'd
for the
you-
awkward question.
Why'd you choose those runes? Oh, they just looked cool.
Yeah, they just thought it looked cool.
Okay,
You
cool.
know, I really
Awesome.
like
That's great.
Vikings.
A
Sweet.
Google
Yeah.
search.
Yeah, and a lot of people, but sometimes if you specifically seen someone wearing a Mjolnir or even a more obscure, the Irminsul,
Yeah.
the German, it's kind of like a Thor's hammer.
People don't accidentally wear an Irminsul.
Irminsul.
No,
Exactly.
no.
So
Like
if you
Mjolnir, I could see you have a 50-50 chance,
Yeah.
but
right, with
Yeah.
an Irminsul, you're most likely they're about a 90% chance that they're Germanic, pagan, or heathen of some sort, and probably have the same kind of view, pretty much as we do. So the jewelry does help identify it. Some people just see the big cool Thor's hammer at some jewelry shop and they like
it's
it.
always the same one too.
Yeah, it's that torque necklace.
Can we
with
move
the,
on from that, please?
Yeah, with the
Yeah.
two wolf
Stop
heads
buying
holding the
this.
rings. The big giant gaudy looking
Stop.
one.
So, on to community. That brings us, I think, naturally into Facebook groups.
Oh,
Because
okay.
a lot of how people who are solitary would first interact with pagans and heathens that might be their own speed or maybe above or below them a little bit as far as what they know is online, because it is much easier to type in, if you're in California pagan groups, than it is to say, I'm going to go to Sacramento, or I'm going to go to San Francisco, or I'm going to go to LA and just start asking
Yeah.
people.
Wander around.
You
Yeah.
just stand on the corner and go, are you heathen? Are you pagan?
So I'm in a few, but mine tend to be more scholastic based because I have a bachelor's in history and that's what
Yeah.
I can stand to read.
History nerd.
Exactly. But that's not everyone's flavor. There's also one like pagan mom group I'm in because I'm like, look at this cute little quilt. because I'm baby crazy. But those are probably my two like categories, and it is overwhelmingly look at this research paper that's peer reviewed and is about like
So one's pure
cups.
academic.
Exactly. And the other one is like, look at this pacifier that's in the shape of a Mjolnir.
Super cute.
The two opposite extremes, but nothing in between.
So I'm wondering if you have Facebook groups or if you have anything like that, or do you have, Even like YouTube channels that you follow that.
I don't have too many YouTube channels, but I am in quite a few, and I shift around. I'll like sit in a Facebook group and see if there's any content in there that I'm interested in. If not, I just book it out of there. But it seems like lately, like a lot of Facebook groups are just like too concerned with just trivial, stupid drama.
Yes.
And so once I start to smell drama, I just leave because it's like I don't have time to think about
Right.
this.
If you want to learn something, you know, and that's
so-
one thing. But a lot of groups they'll start just posting, you know, Viking memes and
I
stuff
can't,
like that.
Any Viking memes and I'm gone.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I belong
you've
to a
lost
really
me.
good one on German culture and spirituality.
I think I'm in that one.
Yeah, and it's Melissa. It's like Lilleheiten is her name or something like that. And her group, she won't let anybody post any kind of Viking memes or anything.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm still in that group.
I
don't
think it's
know.
called Germanic Tribes and Spirituality is what it's called.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
that has been pretty good. I'm also
Yeah.
in one that's like Germanic spirituality altars. Because, like, I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I like to see what other people do. I mean, I do my own thing, so I don't really care, but it's interesting to look at.
I keep seeing that one and wanting to join, but like, I don't have any word for an altar yet. I'll do it later.
Yeah, some people make, like, little ones or, like, your traveling suitcase altar.
It's a pop-up.
that would be
Yeah,
perfect.
or
Yeah,
like-
it's just like.
I'm
Or, like,
I'm a
sometimes
door-to-door
if
gothy.
Yeah.
Yeah, door to door. Sometimes I feel, I mean, I'm not that old, but it makes me feel old when I see all these like little baby heathens coming in and look at my very first altar, and it's just really cute, actually.
Yeah.
I don't feel.
Yeah,
like,
it's
animosity
interesting
or
to see
anything.
people starting out in it, and it's good that they're practicing and they're building altars and experimenting with things like that, and you know, and
Or like, should I add this or this?
Right,
It's like,
and-
you do you, boo.
Exactly.
You do what you
It's
need
like,
to do.
What's the
That's
right answer? And it's
all
like
of it.
just get to an answer, and then we'll talk about that.
yeah, and that's you know, and that's encouraging. And if you discourage someone like that, then they'll probably just not want to do it anymore. So you know, it's
No,
good.
and I think that's just as bad as the meme posters. Is the people who are just instantly like someone will ask a question and they'll just be like, "Shut down!
Right.
No, you go research that yourself. You want to know if you can put a rock on your altar? You go research that."
Right,
Like,
they don't wanna
just
help at
shut
all.
up and say, "Yeah,
Right.
that looks great."
I mean, it should
Like,
be
it's not
supportive.
hard.
That's part of the community, whether it's not your flavor or not. There's nothing wrong with helping somebody, or if you have an answer, or asking a question if you don't know the answer.
That's how questions are answered in religious purpose. I mean, that's why people go to church, is to, hear people talk about, like, oh, well,
Yeah,
this
God
is-
answers.
Yes,
because they
yeah.
might not understand
This-
it, and that's
it's
how you find
it's
out.
passed down via oral tradition. It's
Yeah.
not, this isn't. It shouldn't. There's not a fucking textbook.
I just saw someone ask. Oh no, actually, it wasn't a question. It was a statement of, well, stop telling new heathens to go read the sagas or the Eddas, because like that doesn't have any modern day relevance. Yeah, thank
Right.
you. Any modern day relevance.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I'm just like, but that's actually where all of the relevance comes
Yeah,
from.
those are
is
the
like
stories that were passed on.
If you don't have the stories, you're not developing the culture, and if without the stories of the people and the culture, what do you have left?
What are we here for?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what is the point?
I think the problem comes up when you say just read the sagas, read the Eddas. There's like 700 different things between
Yeah.
this every saga and every Edda and every poem, and that's not even including things like folktales. That if you're specifically interested in southern Germany, there's southern German folktales that you could
Yeah.
include. If you're, so just saying go read, I don't see it as
It's not incredibly helpful.
yeah, that's what it is. It's just I've read, so I know, and I'm going to make you work hard because I had to work hard, as opposed to saying, man, a great place to start would be XYZ.
Yeah, this one or this one or this one.
I think if you're reading the sagas to read about Vikings, read about Laxadala saga, read about Egil Skallagrimsson saga. But if you're reading it because you want something heatheny, read Hrafnkel Frigodi saga, because in that one, a man who calls himself Frey's Godi basically dedicates a horse to Frey, And then the story is around what happens when he has to weigh his oath to Frey to not killing a human. Spoiler alert, things go bad because he kills a human because he rode the horse. So I think that's a good one because it shows things you can actually do. Like, it doesn't say in a textbook, like, this is how you dedicate an animal.
Yeah.
He just
Yeah.
decided to do that.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
it
we're all
seemed
kinda-
appropriate.
Well, and
That's one
yeah.
of the draws for me about paganism is that there's not necessarily like there's not one
There's not one
there's
right
not
way.
one answer.
Right.
You know, there's multiple answers, and I mean we're basing our modern day religion off of ancient material and ancient gods.
Right.
So there's gonna be a little wiggle room.
Yeah.
But that's okay because
Right.
that's how we create a a better bond through it, and and I think communities online and everything like that. It's an excellent way to share that.
Right, and if you go to any other heathen group and you say you just were invited as a guest to some other person's ritual or some other group's
Yeah.
ritual, theirs would differ from ours and ours would differ from the next one. And,
Yeah.
and everyone has their own little flavor. I mean, I think the general gist of it would be pretty much the same. You'd honor the gods and raise a toast and an ancestor probably. But everybody would have a different way of doing it. And that's okay because that's what gives us the leeway to do it.
Same language, different accents.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and it's just like language
Yeah.
where, it should be developing constantly, renewing itself. If once you let it die and you're only doing reconstructionism, then you're not actually developing that language or that culture anymore or that faith.
We're
Right.
just going through the motions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking, I didn't write it down, so I'm glad I remembered it. That when we did our Krampus love, we did a Krampus Lauf-ish in one of our local parades. It was
Very
our
watered down.
first, super watered down because Americans can't handle it. I'm sorry.
We
But
didn't want to scare the children. Yeah.
well,
Too
Well,
much.
we wanted
You might
to.
not.
We wanted to, but nobody else wanted us to scare the
Yeah.
children.
yeah, so it was just like we did the best we could with the crowd we were given.
Right.
But this particular parade, we've done multiple. But last year we did one parade in one of our local towns, and it created this huge, just craziness online where
we
someone
broke it.
asked who were those people with the fur and the horns. And someone answered, and then it just created
Blew up.
It was insane.
Yeah,
it was
we broke
really,
the internet, and someone created an actual pagan group in our area specifically because it was posted on the county incident feed, which was where. which is where the incidents for there was an accident or there was a fire and
Why
whatever.
are the sheriffs going
Yeah,
down this
Yeah.
road?
So
I heard sirens.
it's a public forum where people post incidents that they find out about, they hear on the scanner and things like that, ran by just members of the community.
Eric's
And
just-
so somehow we got on that page and it started taking over that page. So someone had to create another group.
We had like 1,000
Yeah.
comments.
So someone created basically a pagan group for our area so that they could move the conversation over to there so it didn't flood the incident feed group and bury it.
Basically what the comments consisted of was the original person going, "What were the people with the fur and the horns?"
Mm-hmm.
Someone saying, "Well, they were really scary and they kept jumping out at us and da 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 da, and I think it's this and this and this." And
Yeah,
then
oh, it was the devil.
every pagan in the Tri-County
Oh, yeah.
area came out and was like, "No, this is tradition."
Yeah, it was, one person said, well, this doesn't belong in small town Christmas. And someone else was like, no, this is actually started because of
Yeah.
small town Christmas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in
So-
Europe,
And-
most of your ancestors are from Europe. This is what they did in Europe, and it's
We're in a
Well,
highly
specific
Germanic
Alpines,
area.
yeah. So actually,
Yeah.
this
And Italian.
yeah.
and Italian.
So-
The majority of the families that have been here for any considerable time in the Gold Rush area are like top German,
Right.
second Italian, third, we're probably getting more towards
Like English and
yeah,
stuff.
English and yeah, but
Anglo-Saxon.
Right.
but most of the old gold miners were German.
Yeah,
And
so the
there's-
Krampus they were afraid of that didn't belong in Christmas parades is actually from their own culture.
Yeah.
Whether they know it or not, that was more closely related to Christian than, their Christian tradition of Christmas than any other thing that they probably have practiced before.
I love
But
the
it created quite the storm.
I love the idea of them being like, "What are you?" and us being saying, "We're you."
We are
Looking at the
you.
air. But actually, I'm still part of. So they started that last. The parade was like,
like
after
November-ish.
Thanksgiving. So yeah, it was end of November.
Yeah.
They started that group, and I'm actually still in that Facebook group. It's I know I'm just sneaky. But no, there's quite a few people in there that are. Actually, I think I'm the only one in there that's heathen.
The rest are pagan.
Probably
or,
everyone else is Wiccan, or
pagan, or
witchy
something.
of some sort.
Right.
And I mean, that's fine. I know I kind of dogged on witches earlier, but they're all actually really nice, super supportive, and
Yeah, and they actually came to our defense against the people who
Yeah, I
thought
was
we
so
were
surprised.
demons and it had no place in a Christmas parade.
Yeah.
And it's actually an alpine tradition of Northwest Europe, and it's very much part
Which-
of.
actually brought me to my second point.
Mm-hmm.
Was not only did we break the internet once, but also there's kind of no excuse to be solitary anymore. I mean, look at where we live. Actually, you might not know where we live. So
By
we live
design.
in the mother lode area of California, so like the Sierra
The
foothills,
Sierra foothills.
which everyone here it's basically the California Bible Belt
Oh,
is
yeah.
where we live.
Oh yeah.
And the amount of pagan people of all sorts of flavors, and even just our group, Ulfar folk, look at how many people we've found or have found us, and we live in such a small, rural
area.
nowhere.
Right.
So if we can do that, there's no reason for anyone to be solitary, I don't think.
Right, and it's not the concept of build it and they will come, because it's actually really hard to find people. But if you,
Oh, did we go through the weeds?
yeah, and we eventually, we started to run into people and other people talking about us and talking about our Krampus situation at the parade and the whole thing with that. They linked and found us through our podcast, our Facebook, and our Krampus, posts and things like that. So we Krampus actually, we would,
Krampus.
and that's how we've developed a community is creating that and drawing more people to us, and not necessarily on purpose. We didn't go to the Krampus parade to find more members for our group.
We did it because I really wanted to do it.
And it's
Yeah.
part of our culture, and it was something that was, nobody's ever done that in our area before, and so we wanted to be the first to do that, and it actually, created a storm, but it also we had some benefits from it.
I just got the biggest kick out
Yeah.
of it. I wasn't worried about the haters. I
Yeah.
mean,
No,
whatever.
but I think it was that little bit of like pushback, and then just everyone was like, it was just the positivity of like, no.
Yeah, that's not what they
Y'all
are.
don't get
and
to
that's-
run the world. This
Yeah.
is our community. As
Right.
pagans.
Every single pagan in the mother
Yeah.
lode
Attack.
has
Like,
come
Yeah.
out.
It's blood in the water for the
Yeah.
happy sharks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good that people stood up for their right to do that in a parade. And,
I wasn't even on that group. Someone
Yeah.
actually linked it to me.
Yeah, and sent a link to the
Yeah.
Krampus page, didn't they? And that's
Yeah,
how,
yeah, they didn't even know I was in it.
Yeah.
They just sent it to our Krampus
Yeah,
page.
because they didn't know that our personal tribe is also the Krampus people that do the parade. So they haven't. I don't think a lot of people have figured it out. But yeah, we kind of like to stir the pot, and we created a storm. But we didn't get invited back, and we also got what was the
Oh,
award
we
we got?
did not get invited back to that
Not that
specific,
specific one, but
their coordinator sent me a lot of really weird questions, and so I just said whatever.
right. But we did get an award for best walking group.
Yeah,
and,
2 years in a row.
And we got invited back to 2 other parades, I
Yeah,
believe.
so whatever.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll stir the pot once again.
So, just to finish off, I think your point, Sarah, that there's no real excuse to be solitary other than if you just really want to be,
Yeah.
is the answer. But communities formed online, in my opinion, are great in that they should lead to communities formed in real life. And so you'll see a lot of, especially on the ones I'm around, the academic fuddy-duddies who are reading research articles for fun. They'll have every 2 months or so a roll call of like, hey, is anyone in North Carolina? Let's meet up. Or
Yeah.
is anyone in Illinois? And of course no one is, because why would anything be easy? But sometimes it happens where people don't mind making a 2-hour drive to Chicago because there might be 10 people within a 10-hour drive to Chicago, and that's the meeting point.
Yeah.
But, being able to sit at a table with like minds and be able to discuss.
Oh, it's
common
Right.
property.
totally different.
And virtual
It's-
groups are, they're okay in lieu of, if there's nothing near you and nobody that can.
Yeah.
But
but
there was nothing near us.
right, but that's not an excuse to not reach out and not create, community and try to find other members that are like-minded and actually meet in person. And, eventually you can create a real physical, actual group, and I think that would be, something we should all strive for.
And it helps if your community is based more on the fact that you're pagan, because eventually, when you've all read the books and you don't have any more questions and you're pretty comfortable in what you believe, you'll need something else to talk about besides paganism.
Or,
Yeah.
or
You don't-
101
Yeah.
type stuff, because you're beyond that, right?
So you should also, if you find a majority of, you like mini golf, you can have mini golf communities full of pagans who, share the same hobby, or board games, because they're pretty, low access to entry and people tend to like board games. So have, in addition to your meetup night, and in addition to your, we do 2 stumbles a year or whatever you're starting out at, you can also have a game night where you guys get to just fart around and have fun.
Yeah, get to
And
know
You
each
get
other.
to know each other on a personal level besides only in ritual or during ritual.
Exactly.
But I find that actually strengthens ritual.
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
Being able-
Yeah.
having like a really close personal bond, it makes that special time even better.
And that's why many of us in Ulfer Folk are not part of another organization. There are some of us who are, but for the majority, we aren't, because we rather have the small, closer
Yeah.
knit group than
Yeah.
having 50 people in a circle and not know everyone's
Not
name.
know
and,
hardly any of them.
and then how can you trust that they're going to feed into your frith properly? And then you come up with all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, that was a great conversation. So on that note, Sarah's going to go ahead and wrap up the podcast.
All right. Be sure and like and share Ulfer Folk, our podcast, and you can find us at our website at ulfarfolk.wordpress.com. We are available as a podcast on just about every single format. Ulfar is ULFAR. Thank you for listening.